Have you ever found yourself in a heated argument, trying to prove a point, only to feel like you're losing more than you're winning? Well, what if I told you that the key to true power lies not in defending yourself, but in silence? In today's video, we'll explore why you should never argue, drawing from the timeless wisdom of Niccolò Machiavelli and Stoic philosophy. Machiavelli, a master strategist, understood that every time you argue, you lose something far more valuable than the argument itself: your composure, your authority, your peace. The Stoics, led by figures like Marcus Aurelius, believed that emotional mastery and self-control were the highest forms of power. Instead of reacting to every provocation, they taught that true strength lies in holding your ground, remaining silent, and letting your actions speak for themselves. So if you want to learn how to stop arguing and start commanding respect in every situation, stay tuned. This video will show you how silence, not words, can make you untouchable. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for more powerful insights. Number 1. Silence commands, ego reveals. Picture two leaders in a room. One sits back, calm and composed, speaking little but commanding attention with his presence. The other paces, voice raised, arguing to prove a point. Which one seems more powerful, more in control? Instinctively, we lean toward the silent figure. Why? Because true power doesn't need to shout. It's felt, not forced. The more a person argues, the more they reveal their emotional investment and need for validation. Niccolò Machiavelli, a strategist ahead of his time, grasped a timeless principle that still escapes many. Power thrives in perception, not in noise. In the subtle arenas of influence, the person who debates openly often displays their fragility. Why? Because while arguments target the intellect, people are governed by pride, ego, and emotion. When you argue, you broadcast that you're emotionally entangled, that your composure can be shaken, that you're chasing affirmation. To those attuned to power's quiet codes, that chase is the loudest confession of weakness. It's not about the sharpness of your reasoning, it's about the vulnerability your reactions reveal. Machiavelli recognized this just as Sun Tzu and countless strategic minds did after him. They all repeat the same unyielding principle: do not argue. Wield influence from afar. Guide others with subtle cues. Lead with presence, not provocation. Because when you argue, you're not persuading, you're polarizing. Each word doesn't break down barriers, it reinforces them, brick by brick, with the cement of ego. The harder you push to convert someone in open debate, the more they dig in. Not necessarily because you're wrong, but because you've challenged something deeper than logic: their pride. And pride resists harder than reason ever can. Arguments breed hostility. They leave a trail of resentment and make you appear reactive, easily rattled. But silence? Silence cloaks you in ambiguity. And ambiguity breeds power. When you stay centered, refusing the emotional bait others toss your way, you demonstrate something commanding: that you are unshaken, unbothered, untouchable. Your stillness becomes a mirror, forcing others to confront themselves without your interference. This is why the truly powerful seldom justify themselves. Their authority comes from presence, not persuasion. They shape thought like gardeners planting seeds, quietly, patiently, not like soldiers swinging swords. Their movements are intentional, and their silence disarms. Machiavelli taught it, and the Stoics lived it. True control lies in discipline, not in displays. On the chessboard of power, the one who doesn't speak first forces others to act without clarity. And in that fog, your quiet confidence becomes the unseen advantage. Silence is not retreat, it is strategy. It is the disciplined decision to choose your battlefield, rather than be dragged into one not of your making. To hold your peace is to wield the ultimate weapon: restraint. In the end, mastering silence is mastering the self. The loudest person may seize attention, but it is the quiet one, composed, unprovoked, deliberate, who holds sway. Power does not shout, it watches, waits, and moves only when the moment is right. Number 2, arguments feed ego, silence builds power. Imagine this: two people disagree. One rushes to prove a point, raising their voice, pouring energy into each rebuttal. The other listens, unmoved, offering nothing in return. Who appears more in control? From the perspective of strategy, the quiet one holds the power, because in silence lies strength, not surrender. The moment you choose to argue, you step onto the opponent's ground. You validate their narrative, accept their emotional terms, and give up the tactical distance that once kept you above the fray. Regardless of how sharp your reasoning may be, engaging means you've already paid a price: the loss of mystique. Arguments pull back the curtain. They show your limits, where irritation brews, where pride surfaces, where composure cracks. Even in victory, you've descended into a public struggle where emotion often overshadows logic, and power in its purest form thrives on what is unseen, not what is explained. Those who resist the urge to argue build an impenetrable wall of presence. They radiate strength not through volume, but through restraint. Machiavelli, like the Stoic sages before him, understood that silence isn't weakness. It's a controlled refusal to be drawn into a spectacle you don't need to win. Used deliberately, silence becomes a weapon of reflection. It forces others to confront their own motivations. They speak louder, repeat themselves, reach for emotional punches that never land. And in that void, their insecurities are amplified. Most debates aren't about clarity, they're about control. And control is always lost when you take the bait. By standing firm and refusing to engage, you become a target they cannot reach, a storm they cannot shake. They are left reacting to your calm while exhausting their energy, trying to provoke what will not move. Know this: real power does not reside in who speaks last. It lies in who doesn't need to speak at all. Observation without reaction is dominance in its quietest form. The one who remains still while others thrash about owns the moment. He becomes a riddle, a silence too loud to ignore. And that quiet confidence becomes armor, resistant to manipulation, immune to provocation. Where others shout to be heard, he whispers through presence alone. Those who master this art of silence do not merely avoid conflict, they render it unnecessary. They exist above the noise, untouched by the chaos others create in their need to be right or seen. Silence is not about hiding, it's about choosing your moment. It's about knowing that withholding energy is sometimes the most decisive move you can make. The less you explain, the more they wonder. The more they wonder, the more you control the pace. In a world loud with opinions, the one who observes without reacting becomes the rarest force of all, one who shapes reality without ever raising his voice. Number 3, silence protects power. Imagine you're seated across from someone in a negotiation. They speak rapidly, trying to convince, explain, and justify their position. You, on the other hand, remain still, watchful, silent. The more they speak, the more they reveal. The more you withhold, the more control you gain. This is the unseen power of silence. It turns every moment of restraint into a psychological advantage. Machiavelli believed appearances held more value than truths in the pursuit of control. He advised leaders to wear masks of virtue while staying ready to act in contradiction when necessary. He understood that the one who argues too much pulls off his mask, revealing emotions and weaknesses that should remain hidden. Every time you argue, you draw a map of your emotional terrain. You highlight where your patience runs out and where your pride begins. That map becomes useful to others, not for agreement, but for manipulation. The more you talk, the more readable you become. In professional settings and personal relationships alike, those who remain composed under pressure are often seen as the most powerful. Their silence doesn't reflect uncertainty, it reflects intention. They don't need to dominate a room with words, their calm is the message. Words once spoken can be dissected, twisted, or turned against you. Silence offers no such opportunity. It cannot be misquoted or repurposed. It endures like a locked door, unopened and impenetrable. While logic may win a debate, it rarely wins loyalty. Arguments often leave behind resentment, no matter how justified. People forget who was right, but they never forget how they were made to feel. A bruised ego, once cornered, doesn't surrender. It seeks revenge. The most respected leaders are those who do not need to explain every move. They act decisively and let their results speak. They aren't interested in convincing anyone of their rightness. They simply are right and let time prove it. Powerful individuals move with care. They don't rush to defend or explain. They observe. They absorb. They give the illusion of passivity, all while subtly directing the outcome in their favor. Their silence is not absence, it's precision. The less you say, the more others project onto you. They wonder what you're thinking, fearing possibilities you haven't confirmed. That ambiguity becomes leverage. The unknown is always more intimidating than the known. Silence creates space for strategy. In that space, you gather information, assess intentions, and build leverage. Those who speak constantly often miss these opportunities. They are too busy responding to think. In an age obsessed with oversharing, silence makes you rare, and in that rarity, you gain value. It is not a weakness, but a force, a discipline, a form of strength that doesn't beg to be seen, but is impossible to ignore. Ask yourself, what are you giving away every time you rush to speak? Is your need to be heard costing you the very influence you seek? The man who can hold his tongue holds his power, and in that restraint lies the truest form of dominance. Number 4, silence outsmarts chaos. There is a subtle intelligence in silence that few ever master. It doesn't need to resist the noise. It simply renders it irrelevant. Both Machiavelli and the Stoics grasp this well. Power is not won through outbursts, but through calm that unnerves the storm. When you leap to explain, to prove, or to correct someone, you are surrendering position. You're showing that something inside you needs recognition. And the moment you need, you've already placed power in someone else's hands. Marcus Aurelius didn't argue with noise. He lived above it. He believed that action speaks louder than assertion. Machiavelli stripped the sentiment out of that idea, showing how influence belongs not to those who speak first, but to those who observe longest. A man confident in his position doesn't beg to be understood. He doesn't fumble for evidence or debate to convince. His calm is unsettling because it signals certainty, not struggle. The need to argue reveals something deeper than frustration. It reveals dependence. A dependence on others agreeing, accepting, validating. But true strength isn't consensus-based. It's grounded in being unmoved. Those who know the game rarely play it out loud. They let others exhaust themselves in circles while they measure everything silently. That's a strategic advantage, to let others signal while you remain unreadable. The strongest voice isn't the loudest. It's the one that chooses when to speak. When you resist the impulse to react, you take control of the tempo. The argument dies because you won't feed it. The opponent spirals because their hooks find nothing to pull. That silence is not weakness, it's psychological jujitsu. In professional settings, the individual who refrains from arguing commands far more weight. They don't scramble to be heard. They calculate the moment to speak. When they do, everyone listens. Not because they are loud, but because they are rare. In relationships, silence can reset an entire dynamic. Arguments become traps. Every word is a new wound. But a composed retreat, a thoughtful pause, forces everyone to reflect, not retaliate. It replaces chaos with clarity. In the public space, on social media, in politics, in influence, those who spar constantly lose their edge. But the one who stays quiet, measured, observant, they become something more than a participant. They become a presence. Here's what many overlook. Chaos thrives on reaction. But when you choose not to engage, not to respond, you don't just avoid the chaos, you starve it. Silence then becomes more than a tool. It becomes your shield, your signal, and your strike, all in one. Ask yourself, what might shift in your world if your silence was intentional, not passive? What could you win if you refused to fight and let your discipline do the talking? Number 5, refusing to argue commands respect. There's an undeniable strength in choosing silence over conflict, something both Machiavelli and the Stoics knew well, but few people truly understand today. This strength isn't just about withholding words. It's about commanding a presence that doesn't rely on verbal validation or external recognition. Silence doesn't simply avoid engagement. It creates its own power. It establishes an invisible force that holds sway over the room, where your mere presence grows more significant because it's not tainted by the need to explain yourself. In a world obsessed with constant noise and chatter, silence stands out as a powerful, almost magnetic force. It's not absence. It's the subtle pull of someone who doesn't feel the need to prove their point. Machiavelli grasped this concept deeply. Silence is not weakness, it's strategy. In choosing not to engage, you make a calculated decision to maintain your composure, holding your ground without uttering a word. This is how real power manifests, through measured restraint. When you engage in arguments, you risk revealing your vulnerabilities. Every word exchange shows others where you can be pried open. It's a weakness you expose unknowingly, giving others the leverage to chip away at you. In contrast, by refusing to argue, you keep your control intact, remaining centered and unfazed by external pressures. In tense situations, whether at work or in personal relationships, those who argue reveal their need for validation. They lose the game when they step into a confrontation that's not truly theirs to win. The key to maintaining your ground is not defending yourself, but instead redirecting attention to what truly matters. Think of a public challenge. The one who argues with the aggressor risks making it a spectacle. The one who remains composed, speaking only when it drives the narrative forward, shifts the focus back to their power, not their defense. It's this controlled response that earns deep respect. When emotions run high in personal relationships, the one who lashes out is seeking to draw you into their emotional spiral. Responding to their provocation only serves to lose your peace. But when you withhold your response, staying calm and composed, you gain control over the situation without needing to escalate it. The silence you maintain isn't about avoiding confrontation. It's about rising above it. It's about choosing when and how to act with intention, rather than being drawn into someone else's emotional whirlwind. In the age of social media, where debates and conflicts erupt with the click of a button, engaging in every argument diminishes your value. When you remain quiet, you hold the power to ignore what's not worth your energy. You don't lose by not responding. You gain by staying poised. It's human nature to want to defend oneself, to explain, to correct. But giving in to this impulse means you're giving up control. The moment you try to justify yourself, you hand over your power to others. Instead, maintaining silence in the face of criticism allows you to remain enigmatic, untouchable, and in control of your narrative. Each moment of silence is an opportunity to assess the situation. It's a chance to understand the underlying dynamics at play. You can learn more from a conversation you don't engage in than one you jump into blindly. Every time you refrain from responding, you stay in command of your actions, your reactions, and your mindset. The person who never engages in petty arguments is often the most influential because they know how to conserve their energy for the battles that matter. Their words, when they do speak, carry far more weight than the constant noise around them. The more strategic their silence, the more powerful their presence becomes. In the most crucial moments, it's not the person who speaks the loudest or defends their position the hardest who commands respect. It's the one who stands still, unmoved by the noise, and waits for the right moment to act decisively. That's where true power lies. In both personal and professional settings, the ability to choose silence over argument is a mark of strength. By not reacting impulsively, you demonstrate emotional intelligence and self-mastery, showing that you're not swayed by the whims of others but act only from a place of purpose and control. The ultimate power doesn't come from winning arguments or gaining approval. It comes from mastering your own reactions. The ability to stay unshaken in the face of provocation reveals an inner strength that demands respect, not because you argue, but because you choose to rise above it. The next time you're tempted to argue, take a step back and think about the power of silence. As Machiavelli and Stoic philosophy teach us, arguments only weaken our position and expose our vulnerabilities. When you choose silence, you maintain control and let your actions speak louder than words. It's not about avoiding conflict, it's about mastering it. The strength to stay composed in the face of provocation is the real secret to influence. So remember to pause before reacting. If you enjoyed this insight, hit like, subscribe, and share it with others who need to hear this.